Let's try this again.
We're back.
I think I see you guys moving. Oh my goodness. Holy cow.
We hear you. The good
Yeah.
news is all of these things just seem to originate for you, and all of us get to see you smoothly and clearly, and we get to hear you well. It's great.
It is. Well, go ahead, Steve.
No, I was going to say, I do hear your dial-up, but that's welcome to AOL.
You've got mail. You've got news.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know if it was my son. He's like, it's Sunday night. Everybody's watching football or something like that. Okay. Lake says, looks and sounds good this time. I don't know. We'll try this around. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us for, well, at least Lake, thank you for joining us. We're going to run through some of the news from the monthly roundup that was September, but we're going to go into October because there really wasn't a lot of news in September. I mean, there was things happening, but I think most of the announcements that I was able to pull up actually happened in October. But before we jump into it, welcome back our news co-host. How you doing today, Chris? As I ask, how are you doing today, Steve, since Chris is drinking?
I'm doing well.
Well, thanks for joining us, Chris. How are you doing down in California?
Great. It's beautiful, sunny California. Everything's great. Love it.
Everything is awesome, huh?
Just like the Lego movie.
You and your lack of humidity and high gas prices.
Yeah.
We have a nice dry heat.
Well, let's just jump it. Exactly. Well, and Steve was out running today as he gets ready for the Wine and Dine, which is what? How many weeks away?
I think it's 20. I think it's exactly 4 weeks from today, right? Lake's in here. I think it's 4 weeks from today.
Oh man, you're running the half, right? And anything else? Just the half, right?
Just the half.
Just the half, right?
Just the half.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't want to wait. Bless all the challenge and dopey folks. I don't want to wake up at that time every single day and run.
I definitely hear you there. And Chris, you and I have got the half marathon staring us down in January. You ready for that?
I am. I am currently training for it. I ran this morning around Griffith Park here in LA. So
I love Griffith Park.
You know, it's happening, even though my body is like, oh, no, we're not doing that anymore. But it's going to be fine. I feel like a good 6 weeks into training, then your body starts feeling like it can handle it a little more easily.
Lake says 4 wheels from the half. No, weeks. You just need some wheels, Steve, to get you there.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Chad's joining us too. He just got done with a half Ironman. That is crazy.
I don't understand, Chad.
It would be so easy for me to train for that here because we have the pools and easy to bike around in the bike lanes. But it's just like running is just enough.
Yeah,
it's enough for me.
You know, Chad and I have talked about this before, but I went and saw my cousin do a full Ironman, and there's something about it. I was not expecting this, but like being there at the finish line and watching people finish that Ironman, I got emotional. Like it's like one of the few things. Well, not one of the few things, but definitely one of the things that like actually got me teary eyed. It's like, holy cow! Thinking about like the amount of training these people put into it, it's pretty amazing. So I've nothing but respect to you, Chad, and anybody else out there doing a half Ironman, and anybody out there doing a 5K. To be completely honest, 10K, half marathon, whatever it is your journey is taking you on. So let's jump into the September/October DCL monthly news as we do a little recap here. We're going to start off with the great white whale of the Disney Cruise Line fleet, the Disney Wonder, which has begun sailing out of the port of San Diego. She started sailing on the first trip on October 1st. We've got a podcast coming up this week, which features that first sailing and some of the I think it's pretty similar to what we've been seeing on the Fantasy and the Dream, but we look for that this week. But the Wonder will feature at San Diego 3 and 4 night sailings with stops at Ensenada and a day at sea on the 3-day. And on the 4-day, she's going to do 2 days at sea and a stop at Cabo San Lucas. Although there is actually a tropical storm coming up the west side of Mexico, which is stopped the 11th sailing, I think, or the sailing today on the Wonder, which she's not going to actually stop in Cabo because of that tropical storm that's going to make a little jaunt. It shouldn't affect you, Chris. Don't worry about it.
I'm just surprised. That's all. I guess it's possible for there to be hurricanes in the Pacific and big storms, but it's pretty rare. So fascinating. I hadn't even heard about it. And
yeah. It's affecting this week's sailing, but I think that we'll be good after that. I think we think of like Steve down there in Tampa in Florida and the hurricane season down there, right, Steve?
I think that keeps the ships kind of empty around here, usually around September, October. But that plus school starting, people don't want to go during hurricane season. But I watched the Chicago Marathon today, and it almost reached 80 degrees in October in Chicago. So anything is possible, folks. People were dropping like flies out there. It was
Oh
really
my gosh. Yeah. All right. So she's going to be doing sailings until November 5th, where she transitions back to the East Coast via the Panama Canal. What's interesting is I was trying to pull that up to find that date for sure. And if you go to Disney Cruise Line's website, you cannot actually book that right now. So I'm not sure if they pulled that booking or if it's not on sale right now. Chris, I know you were looking at it. Do you have any info on that?
The Panama Canal cruise?
Yeah.
So when I went to book it, in my mind, I was like, maybe this will be the cheapest Panama Canal cruise ever. And then when I went to book it, it was like $11,000 for the lowest category. So that was a hard no. And then it eventually dropped down to like 7,000 or 8,000, and that's still a hard no for us. So yeah. I haven't checked anymore because I was like, that's never going to be in a price range that we would just drop at the last minute without a lot of planning. So yeah, I hadn't heard that it was off the website, but it doesn't surprise me that the cruise that I'm going on October 31st was originally a 5-night cruise that they dropped down to 4 nights, partially so they could have an extra day to prep for the Panama Canal cruise. They're taking off all of the Halloween on the high seas stuff and putting on all of the Christmas stuff, but also, it's back up.
Well, there we go.
$dollars.
It may have been user error on my part.
But yeah, they're spending a whole day getting it ready. And I don't think that that's normal. In fact, it wouldn't be normal because the original plan was to have it set, to leave right away after the cruise that I'm on. And all the people in my Facebook group who are going on my cruise, who were there from the beginning, they all got a huge amount of onboard credit to make up for the day that they're not getting. So that's kind of cool.
My speculation is maybe supply chain issues and just making sure that the ship is staffed and stocked appropriately. I don't know. Or maybe some protocol stuff's going through the Panama. But yeah, it's on there and it's searching for 2. And there's a concierge spot. So we know who we got to call.
Well, there we go.
Where is he?
So on November 5th, she'll transition to the East Coast via the Panama Canal. All guests on that sailing will have to be vaccinated. So nobody under 12 right now will be allowed on that unless something changes. And I don't think it's going to change fast enough for anybody younger than 12 to be vaccinated in time to make that sailing. All right, let's move on to story number 2. We're going to look at you, Chris, and we're going to stick with the great white whale.
Yeah, so sticking with Disney Wonder, Disney Cruise Line announced that there are going to be some itinerary changes for the Galveston sailings. So the Wonder is going to start sailing out of Galveston on November 19th, which basically is just at the end of that Panama Canal cruise. But due to the ongoing public initiative to stop larger cruise ships from stopping off in Key West, Disney Cruise Line just decided to eliminate Key West from several of those itineraries. Now, guests that are currently booked on those voyages are going to receive a $400 per stateroom non-refundable onboard credit. And that credit could be used towards, onboard purchases, whatever it is that you put into your shipboard account. And then as a thank you for the revised voyage, $400 sounds like a good deal to me. I mean, they're allowed to revise voyages whenever they want. And
I thought that was really generous.
Yeah, they could have not stopped literally anywhere for any reason and not given you $400 for that. Mm-hmm. So the only thing they have to give you back is port expenses, like the fees that they would have charged you to go into port. But $400 feels like a pretty good deal. Though I've heard some folks complaining because I don't think many of these cruises or any of these cruises stop at Castaway, or some of them don't stop at Castaway. So I'm curious. I know, Castaway's not that much further than Key West, right? Like, I'm not a captain, so I don't know if they could have just plugged in Castaway or if there's just too many ships in the mix right now. But I have seen online there's some chatter of folks complaining about that. The last note on here is guess whose sailings were affected would have already received an update from DCL if your sailing was accepted. It would have been like an email.
Steve, have you ever sailed on a sailing that does not stop at Castaway?
That's a good question.
Other than the weather stopping you, I guess.
No, because when we went on the Wonder, it was out of Miami. We went to Key West, and it went to Castaway, and that was it. No, we've luckily, knock on wood, never missed it for any reason, and it was always scheduled as part of our itinerary.
So I've been on several cruises, I guess, that have never gone to Castaway, never scheduled to go to Castaway, and I still love Disney Cruise Line regardless. I think that there's a lot of value in going to some of the other ports as well. Down in Mexico, there's a lot of fun things you can do. I think that Mexico tends to be a lot cheaper than some of the, especially shore excursion wise, than some of the islands out in the Caribbean. So I think there's a pretty good value in that. But I understand people that want to go to Castaway. Any thoughts about not going to Key West, guys, or anything about going on in Key West?
Key West is cool.
Yeah, I like Key West.
People are not happy. People who live there year round are not happy with the way the cruise industry operates there. So I also would probably feel kind of stressed to enter a port that I knew people didn't want me to be in. So it's kind of complicated.
It'd be interesting to hear a local's perspective on things. Just so, people that live there, and I understand the way that it was voted on. It wasn't necessarily the people that were directly impacted, of course, that work on the port or their businesses rely on ship traffic. So, I understand all sides of things. And I've read a little bit about the environmental impacts and things like that, which people have debated as well. So, I like Key West, but there's other ways to get to Key West. Maybe there are even better ways to get to Key West. You were in Key West, right? Recently?
Yeah, we went down to the Keys last June and spent a day down in Key West. So definitely a different way to get down there as far as having to drive down there. Obviously, you can fly down there. There's a couple airports down there that you can fly into. But yeah, I guess I feel for people that want to go to Key West on a cruise. But as you said, Steve, there's some different ways to go as well. So to be honest, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm kind of indifferent. So I feel bad for the people that don't get to go, but I also feel bad for the people that live there and don't want the denizens, coming in and taking over their city every day. So I kind of understand both sides.
Yeah. There's plenty of stops in the Bahamas and the Caribbean and Mexico too.
All right. Well, let's move on to news story number 3.
Numero tres. Disney Cruise Line is set to sail longer sailings beginning this fall. The itineraries are all set for the Wonder Magic Fantasy beginning in October. In fact, I guess the Fantasy just took off on a 7-night yesterday that featured stops at Cozumel, Nassau, Bahamas, and Castaway Cay. The first sailing of the Magic will depart on October 28th from Miami and sailing 4- and 5-night itineraries featuring stops in the Bahamas and Mexico. And the Wonder will begin longer sailings featuring 4-night and 6-night sailings out of Galveston to several ports in Mexico. So the Fantasy went out yesterday for a 7-night?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
She left. Yeah. Have you seen? Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, so with the longer cruises, you now have to be tested after as well, right? Is that the rule?
Correct.
So you have to be tested before and then everything over 6 nights?
I think it's 5.
5 nights. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's 5 nights that they technically have to test you on board before you leave.
I think this is the real test of the protocols now. Is the post test, right? Because now we're not in the bubble of 3 and 4 nights of Castaway Cay and you're back to Port Canaveral and so on. So now you're at multiple different ports, longer sailing. I'm very curious to see how this goes with people getting tested after, and then that will be reportable to the CDC, of course, and all that data will be collected. So we'll see how it goes.
Thoughts,
yeah,
Chris?
I think it's complicated for the cruise industry because testing means that you will find more cases just because of asymptomatic folks, or the fact that a lot of vaccinated folks who test positive have no symptoms. So the likelihood that you're going to find that COVID was in fact circulating on your cruise, even if nobody got sick or died, is possible. So I don't know. I'm trying to read through the story, Steve. Are vaccines, it's because it's out of Florida, I guess, no. Vaccines are not required on these 7-night cruises?
No, same protocols. It's all the same protocols. It's the only additional protocol on longer sailings is being tested as you leave. So I'm sure we're going to hear what it's like to now debark, which is going to be a different process, of course, to get off the ship. And they're going to have to turn it around and get other people. So it's going to be a lot more complicated. And if you're like me and, you're going to Cozumel and going to Senior Frogs, you never know. You're getting shots. You're getting 10 minutes of a spring break. You never know what happens in there. So, what happens there totally is not going to stay there. You may be bringing that Delta back with you, baby. But got to add a little humor to this, right?
Yeah, you got to keep your sense of humor about you. Chad says, aren't other cruise lines using the same or very similar protocols for 7-night cruises? Yes, you're correct, Chad. Mm-hmm. That anything over 5 nights, then technically the cruise line is supposed to make sure they do a COVID test before you come back into the U.S. So I'm not sure how that totally works as far as when you come in. I do have just a curiosity. I don't know. Have you looked at Florida residency rates since the cruises have gotten longer, Steve? Have you seen any ability, or have cruises been pretty much available? I know that they came out, Disney Cruises, I got an email this week with, hey, 25% off, come sail the Wonder out of San Diego. I know 2 sailings ago, or the last sailing had like 400 people on the ship. Mm-hmm. So at least out here, it's been a little wonky as far as getting people back on board. What's your thoughts out there in Florida?
I think this week I saw 34 different cruises were eligible for a Florida resident rate. So that's the most I've ever seen at once.
Yes, but I also saw online that a cruise this week, a Disney cruise this week, sailed with over 2,000 guests.
Christie's. I think it's Christie's.
Yeah.
It's Columbus Day weekend.
We'll talk to her all about that, because the thing that we've been wondering about this whole time is, what will larger groups of people do to the protocols on the ships? But if those ships are sailing with larger, I don't know, my opinion is probably that Disney's always had a weaker market out of San Diego and Galveston and even New Orleans after that first season. Mm-hmm. And that's just because there's such a strong tie-in with Disney Cruise and Orlando, Port Canaveral, Florida in general.
Yeah, and a lot of school districts have off on Monday, and a lot of people might have off on Monday. We don't in our district here. So at first, when I heard that, I was like, oh, and then it made sense, because I think the parks are a little more crowded this weekend than maybe normal, but it's also the 50th, and then I realized everybody's, a lot of folks are off on Monday. So we shall see. Those should be some interesting podcasts coming up with some new additions in the storytelling of cruising during this never-ending pandemic.
Yeah, I think you hit the head on the nail there with Columbus Day weekend, more people being able to come down there. Christy did say that because of it's the most people that she's seen, because she's been on a cruise ship every week, I feel like, which is why she's here today.
She'll want us to defend her and say it's only every 3 weeks.
Oh, only every 3 weeks. Okay.
But she did say that the tables, there was more people in the first couple of sailings she was on. They felt like there was more room in the dining rooms, but now people are a little bit closer. So
I have a feeling Christy spent a little bit more time on her balcony than usual this time. That's my guess.
She may have. All right, let's move into news story number 4, the controversial story. The controversy that just rages around the Disney Twitterverse, Disney Cruise Line, whatever else. Disney Cruise Line removed your dining rotation from all Key to the World cards. Oh my gosh. Now to find your dining rotation time, you will need to have the Disney Cruise Line app downloaded, and you'll be able to find all your dining information there. As stated by several guests of the show, even though you have earlier or later dining, you will also have an additional arrival time window. This allows guests to flow into the dining room without the crowds, theoretically. So what am I saying here? basically on the Key to the World card, you're not going to find your dining rotation. You have to go to the app. And just be aware that right now with dining times, even though there's an early and a later, they do have some times associated where they want you to try and show up. So it kind of reduces the crowds for people arriving at the same time. Any thoughts about the Key to the World card, Chris?
Nope.
I think it is the least news story that we've ever shared because, okay. I think that what really happens is that cruisers, not even cruisers, Disney fans are change adverse. They don't like change. Change is stressful. When these things get rolled out, oftentimes it's during like slow news cycles. So all the many, dozens of blogs dedicated to Disney news will take this story and amplify it. And you'll comb through the comments and there will be like, 300 comments talking about how annoying it is and how now you have to rely on your technology and I don't want to take my phone everywhere. And my whole thing is, who is always just staring at that part of their card every night being like, I must look at this to know exactly where I'm going. For most folks, I feel like you see your dining rotation and then you're like, okay, I'm doing this, this, and this. And because of the paper navigator being gone, you were checking that app to see where a lot of things were. And for those of you who still use the paper navigator, you can use a pen and just write your dining rotation on the bottom of that paper navigator and then never look at it again in the app if you want. So to me, it's a major non-issue. But what I do think is worth speculating is why. And I think the reason they are doing this is because it is so much more convenient for them to be able to change things last minute, even maybe as soon as the cruise is just about to start, shuffling people in and out of rooms. And they're printing everybody's Key to the World cards, potentially even days in advance, if they're doing their best to have, a smooth sail away and getting keys on people's doors and all of that. So it just makes sense that they don't want to have that printed there if they need to make last minute changes. So that's my hunch, and I'm sticking to it.
And Steve looks completely bored.
No. There's no disrespect to the commentary. Listen, I don't know. People get connected to nostalgia for better or for worse when it comes to this stuff, particularly around Disney. So, they go home. I think I have saved my key cards. Unfortunately, I can't find my dang beer cards anywhere. I never, like, the one thing I actually want, I could care less about my key card. I can't find my beer token anywhere. This is the third one, guys.
All right, so
third one. So
I'm going to use mine this weekend, Steve, and then I'm going to send it to you in the mail. So because there's no name on it, so I might as well just send it to you, and you can use mine.
You're a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you.
I just want it back.
I can never find mine.
I want it back before November. Don't lose my beer card, Steve.
Oh my God! If Disney wants this, that's it. They're gonna save the printer ink on the key cards and start putting it on the beer cards.
Yeah, exactly. Elizabeth says the sailings that had 400 people only had one dining rotation. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. One dining rotation. We've got a guest that was on that sailing, and he will be. We're going to be recording with him this week, so we'll make sure we follow up with him on that.
Was it a 2-night? The Baja? Was it 2 nights?
I believe it's 3.
So they just went to the same dining room for 3 nights?
Well, no,
No. It means that they didn't have late seating.
Apologize. Because there's 400. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah,
and
which makes sense.
For people who are like maybe planning on eating later, I could see that being annoying, but I think that makes sense too. It probably is a lot of infrastructure to get that second seating going if there's only going to be 50 people there.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody stayed in the same stateroom too, which is kind of amazing. They all stayed at the Walt Suite.
Don't ask me why that is so funny to them. Just, you know what? Screw COVID protocols. Just throw everybody
in there. All right. Who wants to do the kid spaces? Let's go with, or who wants to do the kid space and who wants to do the teen spaces with the Wish? I'm gonna throw it up at who wants to do which one next?
I don't care. Steve, don't you have a kid?
I have a kid. I have two kids. 6
They're
and
of the
4.
kids' age, right?
They are. I can do this. Yeah.
All right, why don't you run with the next
I was
one?
putting my little guy down to sleep tonight, and he said, "Dad, I want to do this with you. Is this how you make money now?" And I was like, this is."
Yes, we pay our newscasters handsomely.
Yeah. He's so pumped about going on a cruise. Disney Cruise Line announced 2 new spaces coming for kids when the Wish sails next summer. The spaces are going to be Cargo Bay, which is a Star Wars themed space that will take care of porgs, lothcats, warts. Apologies if I mispronounce anything. And more as they are transported to Batuu. Kids will be use augmented reality enabled data pads to learn about creatures. Rey and Chewie may pop in to help out. Some things may go awry, so kids will need to ask Star Wars characters for help, and may even use the Force. And the second experience is going to be Mickey and Minnie's Captain's Desk. This is designed for toddlers. As a nautical themed playground with all kinds of sensory style games and activities. Little guys staying in the Small World Nursery will also get to use the space during certain times. And the Captain Academy is a training session where kids go to try high energy educational challenges with the ability to be named honorary captains by Captain Minnie. These sound really, really neat. Is there a Marvel experience too?
There is, but that was like previously talked about. So there's the Marvel experience down in the Oceaneers Lab and Club, but these were like the new ones that they just released as far as Star Wars, and then the Captain Mini for the younger kids.
Yeah, I actually, and I'll, we'll get to what Chris is going to talk about in a second here with the older kids. I feel like they're plussing up the kids' spaces pretty good. And I already think the kids' spaces are pretty awesome, but there's not a lot of structure to them. It's more like organized chaos in there, and kids can kind of go and do what they want. This seems to be them like kind of following a story, and it's not just like on a special night. It seems to be something that's going to be ongoing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. The good news with this announcement too is that they sort of announced that Captain Mickey, is being demoted to PhotoPass photographer, and Captain Minnie is getting her own academy, and she's going to name people honorary captains. So I think that they're really doing a great job with upholding the legacy of Captain Minnie, while Mickey is doing a great thing by taking family photos on formal days.
Just knocking the poor guy down. He didn't even do anything. I mean, you can't blame him for misogyny. Come on.
I'm just saying, none of the ships have 2 captains, and I'm sure, Steve, you could explain to me, like, well, actually, there's a second captain or whatever. But my point is that in this news release, they are very clearly saying it is Captain Minnie giving folks this sort of like honorary title of captain, and she's going to be running the show. So I'm excited for that. You know me, I stand Captain Minnie. I want Captain Minnie to be everywhere.
Well, I think they're doing a good job of making sure that she's out and about everywhere. I think these are cool experiences for the younger kids. But Chris, what is a lothcat and a wart?
I don't know what a wart is, but a lothcat is something that only like visually I think existed in the Star Wars cartoons, and then when they opened Galaxy's Edge, they have a lothcat animatronic, which what? I guarantee you they're reusing on these ships. But yeah, there's a lothcat animatronic, so you can already go see it in the flesh at Galaxy's Edge in both Florida and Anaheim. But it's basically a cat with a giant round tail, and the animatronic's sleeping. It's like sleeping in a cage at the like creature stall in both Florida and California.
Gotcha. I've never, it's sad because I've been to Galaxy's Edge both in Florida and Anaheim, and generally we just go ride the rides, and then we've never taken the time to explore the rest of the land, which we need to do.
Yeah, they're the type of lands where if you actually just stood in one spot and looked up or looked towards a place that you weren't looking at that moment, you would notice so many random details that were just like totally missed by 90% of people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like that.
The other thing that I kind of like, one of the things that we've heard from several of our podcasts as far as like kids going into the kids clubs is that things are a lot more structured, and a lot of the kids seem to be enjoying that structure. And not that everything has to be structured, because I think that there's some fun in like just being able to go and do whatever you want and play that way. But I like the fact that they're adding these experiences for kids, you know, maybe a little bit more structure where they get to spend an hour or half an hour, however long this experience is going to be, where they can interact with Chewie and Rey and their data pads and just, you know, come back and tell you about what they got to do at the kids club after you come back from whatever it is that you do, Steve, on the ship when your kids are gone.
Champagne.
Champagne.
Beer.
Love.
Massage.
The tube. What's the
honestly, just a drink by the cove and some solitude is good enough for me.
Which is a huge reason why a lot of us with younger kids have gone on these cruises.
That's
all right. Let's move on to story number 6, Chris.
Right.
Carry
So we're talking about the Kids Lab, Oceaneer Club, all of that. Obviously, they were going to the very next day, literally the very next day on the Disney Parks blog, turn around and be like, hey, let's tell you about the teen spaces. So Edge on the Disney Wish, which for those of you who don't know, Edge is for 11 to 14-year-olds. They're calling it Edge because these kids are like on the edge of being a teen or on the edge of being like older, but also they probably still like some organized activities and some fun stuff. So Edge is going to be designed after a New York City loft, which we've seen this language before, folks. They redid Edge inside of the Magic to look like a New York City loft. So I think their vibe for tweens is like trendy furniture, lofted ceilings, not like bright colors anymore, but more so like, you know, letting the 11 to 14-year-olds feel a little more sophisticated with nooks and photo walls and things like that. And funnily enough, they're adding a soda bar, which I think is adorable. These like 11-year-olds can walk up to the bar and talk to the bartender and get like a cream soda to sit down and hang out with their friends. I think it's going to be great. And then for the first time in forever, Steve's note here for me to sing. For the first time in forever, the Wish will have a third location for guests ages 11 to 17. So the tweens and the teens. And this location is called the Hideaway. And it's a space that sort of transforms throughout the day and nights to accommodate different age groups. They have elevated the bar experience here from a soda bar to a smoothie bar. So they're even giving them blended drinks now. I think that's exciting. There's going to be a dance floor, a DJ, karaoke, and dance competitions. I'm so glad that I don't have to be a part of that. But the Hideaway is going to sort of be like a trendy, it has, I'll be honest, it has like speakeasy vibes without obviously any alcohol or prohibition or anything like that, right? It's like hidden and you can go there and get smoothies and hang out and you know, there'll be DJs and music. So I think kids, youth are going to love it. It'll probably be a lot of fun. And the nice thing about the Hideaway is they can also reserve it for guests 18 to 20 if they need to be. So they could say, we're going to use the Hideaway for the 18-20 club. And the 18-20 club is like Disney's, you're not a kid anymore, but you're also not 21. What can you do on the ship? You can hang out with other people in the same situation as you. And if you ever are looking through the navigator and you see like Club 1820 Meetup, or maybe it's called 1820 Society. I think it's called the 1820 Society.
It is, yeah.
So there'll be like the 1820 Society meeting. And then there's one of the things, either of you, that's like similarly coded in the navigator for folks who are like in AA. It's like...
Right. I forget what it's called. It's friends with something or something.
Friends of somebody, and it's
friends of
not called AA because that's not very anonymous. But if you're ever looking through there, and you wouldn't consider yourself a part of AA, don't show up to the Friends of meeting, because that's meant to be an anonymous space. But 2 times you will see listed on there, 1820 Society and Friends of have these meetings throughout the cruise. And that's what they are, if you're ever wondering what they are. Oh, and then all of these locations and spaces for tweens and teens to hang out. But they also are going to feature counselor-led programming. So similar to the youth clubs, they will have some guided programming. Think like, let's go up on the decks and play dodgeball, or let's run around the ship and find porgs, or stuff like that. And that'll be led by a counselor. So there's always going to be something going on to meet each individual age group's needs.
Let's throw spitballs at Donald and Mickey, right, Chris?
All right. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Steve. I love this. I love this announcement. I know your kids are a little bit younger, Steve. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think our experience is it's nice when we go at the end of this month, which I guess we'll segue to in a little bit anyway. It'll be the first time that both of our kids are eligible to go and be dropped off at the kids club, because last time around was 2 years ago, and my youngest guy was just 2.5, so he wasn't quite 3 yet. So to have the experience evolved and like to kind of have these spaces plussed up a little bit, I'm really pumped about that. Where the kids can be like their own Imagineer on the VR roller coasters. My son is like, he doesn't have any VR, of course, but that's what he sees on YouTube. It's like what the algorithm feeds him. He likes the VR ride at the arcade. Like, he would be super pumped to do all that, to be able to create something like that and do some VR on that is pretty neat. So I'm glad they're including all this new technology and getting creative in these spaces. And, what's interesting in those spaces too is none of these add-ons cost money, right? Like, it doesn't cost you anything when you're dropping the only thing that costs money is the nursery. So the experience is all built into the price that you're paying to get on the ship, so which you're certainly paying a hefty fee to get on. But so I kind of feel like, I don't know, there's something very organic about the way that they've created these spaces. And part of me feels like they don't really need to keep like upping the game. Because the kid spaces are pretty cool, but I'm glad they are.
I guess I get a couple different thoughts on it. One, I appreciate the fact that they are actually putting some money and some time into designing something for the Edge for the kids, because that's an overlooked space on all 4 of the ships, especially the first 2 ships, which was the arcade. It's very small on the Magic and the Wonder, so it really is a very small space. And for families, if you want to continue with this product of Disney Cruise Line, which our family enjoys, I get the fact that the focus is generally like, who goes on a Disney cruise? Is kids with 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds or whatever. But there's a value in it for like some older kids as well. And I was messaging with a good friend of our show, and she just recently been on a Royal Caribbean ship. Her kids enjoyed the bells and whistles of the Royal Caribbean ship, which is my kids have been asking about. But she said they got kind of bored with it pretty quickly. And the one thing that the value that I see still in Disney is, the Edge is like video games and photo walls and a soda bar for them to hang out with. But when the kids connect with groups of kids together like that, when they're all put in that space, and if they've got counselors that can really make it entertaining and fun, I think there's a bigger value in it. And I appreciate Disney actually putting some skin in the game for those kids, I guess, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense? Am I rambling?
You made a really good point. I guarantee you that's data driven, that they see like when families stop coming on Disney Cruise Line or don't go as often, what age are the children. And so you're probably right. Maybe that's a thing to say, let's try to retain people throughout, this age of kids in, middle school, high school and up, and make this to be something that's an all ages experience, as opposed to something for, kids that are 12 and under, or 10 and under, or 8 and under, or whatever. That's really a good point. And I bet that's one of those data driven kind of things, is like, when are we losing our customers? What age are the kids going on Royal Caribbean and other ships? Good point.
Oh, I was just saying, I agree. I don't have any kids. In fact, I was doing the like mental somersaults of like, how much of the included kids activities go into cabins where there's 2 adults and like no kids. Like it's obviously built into just the cost of the cruise to have these things operating. So I think that there has to be like a strong pull for Disney Cruise Line to continue to offer adult only opportunities. And my one critique of the Wish is that it almost looks like maybe there's less adult real estate on the Wish than there was on previous ships. Just like if you look at a total space utilization. So I'm curious to see if they come up with plussing up adult spaces in a more fun and exciting way.
Yeah.
But that's a sidebar. I'm happy for the kids. Go down the slide and enter the kids club and do the whole thing. But it's interesting.
You're going to be going down that slide. Come on. If they open it to all ages, you're definitely going down that slide. Just don't go head first.
All right, those are our main news stories today. Kind of a quick show this week.
Is that Christy making a comment? We're hanging out at Masquerade. In fact, I need to go watch it. That is Christy, correct?
That is Christy from our own account, which is probably confusing to everybody.
Yes, Christy's on.
Who has access to our account? No, what is Masquerade? Is that something on
it's the deck party for the Halloween on the High Seas. So there's nothing in the lobby. So it's Mickey and yep. Hi, Christy. Have fun. Yep. How are you? We're just over here jealous. Thanks for taking us. It's the outdoor deck party for the Halloween on the High Seas.
All right.
Well, you will be on that deck party.
What do we have? What do we have? I know. You know what my number one question is? Are there fireworks in the Pacific Ocean, or do they not do that? There are fireworks. Nice. Okay.
Fish food.
Oh, right. It's like made out of eco-friendly coconut.
It's literally fish food. Yeah. It's absolutely.
It is organic, right?
Yep. It could be consumed and is not harmful to fish. That is the only reason they are permitted to do it. And Christy had fireworks yesterday. I love how she's on the Dream in our stream. She's getting better internet than Steve is.
Also, Christy, how much are you paying right now to talk to us on this stream?
Oh my God.
That is a sad point that she's getting better internet than I am. So, all right. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
All right, we're gonna wrap this up. We were gonna talk about Disneyland, and I know that Steve had a couple thoughts about Genie Plus, but we'll save that show for another day.
Yes, we could do a part 2.
Oh, we're in October. November.
So no, November. All right, Christy, have a great time on the Dream. Good luck getting off tomorrow. I hope that all of that goes well. I'm sure that it will. Thank you, Steve and Chris, for being such a huge part of our show. Thanks for it was a good laugh tonight, in all honesty. A lot of funny thoughts about this. So thanks for everybody for coming back, taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. Good night, everybody.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.